Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Alexis Bay Yoga. I'm so very glad that you've decided to join me today. Now, today's practice will be a slow flow with lots of strength building poses built in. Now, if that sounds good to you, go ahead and roll out your mat, hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and we'll flow right into it. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another week of yoga. Be firm, sending that right foot back. Now we will begin our class today by laying on our mats, making our way down to the floor. We'll start with a full body stretch, walking the shoulders into the spine as we reach the arms up overhead and point the toes out in front of the body. We'll take up space here. And we'll focus on taking some deeper breaths, fully filling the abdomen with air. Letting the breath go again. Now wiggling the fingers, wiggling the toes, maybe rocking the hips side to side. Maybe doing the same with the neck, moving the chin from shoulder to shoulder. And then we'll slide the elbows out alongside our shoulders. Fingertips are still pointed to the back of our mat, so if we need to walk the shoulder blades in a little closer to give us space, go ahead and do so. And still taking those big, deep breaths. We'll start to walk the bottoms of the feet in towards the hips and then out to the outer edges of our mat. Now noticing if your low back is not touching the floor, we'll lift the hips up off the mat, tuck them forward and set them down so our back is grounded into the earth. Now if you notice that your mid back is lifting off the mat because your arms are at a cactus pose, you can bring your arms down alongside your body, which will help you ground through the mid-spine, mid-back. We'll start to windshield wiper the knees side to side, dropping both knees down in the same direction, lifting up through center and over to the other, moving as quickly or as slowly as feels right. And we'll bring the knees back up towards the ceiling, starting to heel toe the heels in line with the hips. Still tucking those hips forward so we're grounded down to the earth. And we'll lift the bottoms of the feet up to the ceiling. And then do the same with the arms, reaching tall with the fingertips. We'll circle the wrists, circle the ankles, point and flex. We'll curl the fingers into a fist and then spread them out nice and wide and wiggle everything out. Now bringing the knees out past the rib cage and down towards the floor, we'll grab for the outside edges of our feet or for our big toes. Happy babies. We can rock side to side. We can extend one leg towards straight and then the other. We can wiggle around however feels right. Then we'll let go of the feet and grab for our left leg, hugging the knee into the chest as we extend the right leg up to the ceiling. And we'll let it slowly drift towards the floor. Really taking your time to get it down all the way. Once the right leg is planted down to the floor, we'll guide our left knee over the right side of our body as we move for a gentle twist, taking the eyes out towards our left hand out from our shoulder. And we'll roll back to the mat again. Another big squeeze to the left leg. And we'll reverse like we did before, lifting the right leg up off the mat, sending it all the way up to the ceiling. We'll bring the knee down, hug it into the chest as we reach the left toes nice and tall. And nice and gentle. Let the left leg drift down to the ground. And once that left leg is down, we'll find a gentle twist to this side, extending our right knee over our left, reaching the right arm out and following the right hand with the eyes. Rolling and untwisting back to our neutral. Another big squeeze to our right leg as we start to lift our left back up to the ceiling. And then bring the left leg down. We'll wrap the arms around both legs. We can find a little rocking side to side. We can tuck the chin up to the chest and roll into a tight ball. And we'll start to make our way to standing from here. So we can either roll all the way to one side, use the hands to press us up, or we can rock forward and back until we land the feet on the floor and extend the legs up, wiggling out as we make our way to our mountain pose. Lifting the toes up off the floor, we'll spread them out and set them down. Lifting the shoulders up to the ears, work them back and down the spine, rotate the palms forward, and gently draw the head in. We'll close the eyes and take a few deep breaths, allowing the shoulders to drop a little further away from the ears. We'll bring the eyes open nice and wide as we start to heel toe the feet out. Now you may want to turn sideways, or you will want to turn sideways on your mat so that your feet are both on the mat as we step them further apart. Now our feet can be parallel, or we can turn our toes out, heels in. From here, we'll reach the arms up to the ceiling. And then we'll reach the arms out to the sides as we start to bow the chest forward. Moving to our wide-legged forward fold. And we'll take a little bit of time here to play with the shape as we start to warm up the body. We can wiggle side to side. We can grab for opposite elbows and find a sway. Or we can bend one knee and then the other. We can walk the hands out in front of the body for a wide-legged down dog. Or we can walk the hands through the legs, out behind the body. Whatever's feeling right. Starting to play and notice. With our next in-breath, we'll find a halfway lift, engaging through the core and reaching forward with the top of the head. Exhale, we'll fold forward again, planting the hands down, bending through the knees. And we'll start to walk the hands up towards the top of our mat. So finding a runner's lunge here. We'll take a little bit of time. Again, playing with this pose, softening the hips and maybe shining the chest forward. We'll drop our back knee down and untuck the toes of that leg. Walk the hands around our front foot, and then we'll extend our front leg towards straight as we move to a halfway split, bowing or softening the chest forward. And our toes may lift up off the mat, or they may not, and either is correct. Now from here, we can lift the hands, airplaning them behind us, or just bringing them in towards center. Or we can keep the hands down. Now we'll shift forward, adding the bend back into our front leg. And again, we can have our hands down on the floor, or we can lift the chest up. From here, we'll move to our crescent lunge. So we have an option to drop the hands down to help us tuck the back toes under and lift the leg. Or we can tuck the toes under, keeping the chest up and lift. Keeping the bend in our front leg, we'll reach the arms to the ceiling. We'll hold here for a few breaths, pressing down evenly through both feet. With our next exhale, we'll sweep the arms back behind the body, airplaning them as we start to hinge from the waist. Now we'll soften the chest to the inside of our front knee. Still bending through the front knee, pressing down through the back foot and hovering the chest here. With our inhale, we'll start to lift the chest back up, pressing down through the front leg. And then we'll pivot the hips open, dropping the back heel down. So feet are now perpendicular. Our front leg is bent. We'll reach the arms out the front and back of our mat, tucking the hips forward slightly so that we have a nice long spine. Then maybe we'll soften just a little bit lower in our warrior two. Maybe that means scooting the front foot forward a little bit more, or maybe that just means softening the hips further. We'll extend our front leg towards straight. Take the hips out to the back of the mat so we can reach out the front as we start to hinge and move to our triangle pose. Stacking the arms. Now your triangle pose may be up here higher on the leg, and that is beautiful. Or it may be all the way down. And we'll slowly float our way back up. We can either add the bend back into our front knee first, or we can float up the way we came with our straight front leg. Now, picking up our front toes, we'll wiggle them out as we turn them to our side mat. Now, heels can come in, toes can point away from each other. Reaching long with the top of the head, and we'll bow to our wide-legged forward fold again. With our next in-breath, we'll find a halfway lift, engaging through the core, reaching forward with the top of the head. And with our exhale, we'll hinge forward again, dropping the hands down, and this time we'll walk the hands to the back of our mat as we start to pivot the feet around. And we'll pause here in our runner's lunge or our lizard pose. Allowing the hips to soften and maybe sending the chest forward. And we'll drop our back knee down, untuck the toes. Walk the hands on either side of the front foot if we haven't already. And then we'll lengthen out through that front leg as we move to our half splits. Now bowing or softening the chest forward towards the leg. And then maybe lifting the hands up off the floor and airplaning them behind the body, or keeping them in close. And we'll start to shift forward, adding the bend into our front knee and softening the hips down. Now hands can be on the floor, or we can keep the body up. We'll soften the hips in our low lunge. From here, we're going to make our way to that crescent lunge again. So we can either drop the hands down to help us untuck the toes and lift the back leg, or we can keep the chest up, tuck the toes under, and lift the knee up off the mat. Inhale, reach the arms up, and we'll hold here. With our exhale, we'll find that humble warrior, hinging at the waist, airplaning the arms up and back behind the body, softening the chest to the inside of our front knee. And pausing here, pressing down through the feet. With our inhale, we'll start to lift the chest up as we pivot our back foot around to our warrior two. Feet are perpendicular. We're reaching out the front and the back of our mat, bending through our front knee. And we'll lengthen out from that front leg. Hips go behind, so we can really reach out in front of our toes as we start to hinge forward. Triangle pose. We'll float the body back up. We have the option to either do so with the straight front leg, or to add the bend in first and lift back up. Now we'll pick up our front toes, give them a wiggling out before we pivot them to our side mat again. Now we'll bring those heels in closer, toes to point away. Tuck the hips forward, and then we'll bend through both knees so we can squat down here with our wide legs. Stacking the top of the head over the hips so we have that long spine. We'll take a little bit of time here. Now you can find a sway side to side, or a slight pulse or bounce. And maybe we'll soften the hips a little bit lower, keeping that long spine. Rolling towards the pinky sides of each foot. So we're keeping the hips open and not starting to curl in. We're using the inner thigh muscles and the outer glutes. And maybe going just a little bit lower. Good. With our inhale, we'll reach the arms out to our sides. We'll extend the legs out long. And we'll wiggle the body out. Bringing the hands down to our sides, we'll start to heel toe the feet into center. And make our way to the top of the mat. With an in-breath, we'll reach up to the ceiling. Exhale, hinging from the waist, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Plant the hands down. We'll step the feet back to our plank. Spreading those fingertips out nice and wide. We'll pause here. Now shifting forward. Exhale, chaturanga, lower all the way down to the floor. We'll slide our hands forward so that we can plant our forearms down. So palms are down to the floor. We're lifting up through the top of the head for our Sphinx pose. Pressing down through the tops of the feet, through the hips. And then we'll lift up to a forearm plank from here, tucking the toes under and bringing the hips up off the mat. You can keep the palms planted. We can interlock the fingers or whatever other variation that we like here. Again, we also have an option to drop the knees down. With our exhale, we'll lower the hips back down to the floor. Back to our Sphinx pose, reaching tall with the top of the head. We'll slide the hands in closer to the chest, bringing them underneath of the shoulders. Tuck the toes under and send the hips up and back for our down dog. Now wiggling out, we'll pedal out the legs or swivel the hips. And then we'll slide the hands a little bit closer towards the toes. So we can take the knees a little further out, bend a little more through the knees, and really send that tailbone up and back behind. We'll move to our floating tabletop pose from here. Shifting forward so our shoulders are over the wrists, bending the knees so they hover underneath of the hips, but over the floor. We'll lower the knees the rest of the way down, untuck the toes. With an in-breath, shine the chest and the eyes forward as we lower the abdomen and lift the hips. With our exhale, we'll curl in towards center and arch up through the mid-back. And move back and forth with our breath. And back through our tabletop. We'll start to walk the hands in towards the knees and sit up on the heels. Roll the shoulders back and down the spine. Reach tall with the top of the head. We'll take a moment to sit here on the heels. Thank you so very much for joining me today. It is always such a joy and an honor to get to spend this time with you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Go in love, go in light, go in peace, and go in joy.